Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today, we're going to discuss something that's been coming up in a number of different calls that I've had with clients. And this is pertaining to being able to get the results you're looking for. And, we sometimes say, okay, how do you build a legal structure that's going to achieve your objectives? I'm going to talk about that. But also, it can come up in other cases, such as something like how to get bank loans, how to a bunch of different situations. Basically, hey, here's what you want, how do you get it? I'm going to kind of go through my way of thinking about it, and for some reason I feel like it should be really natural, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be very natural. So I'm going to cover that for you, and we're going to go through it. So before we get started, if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We appreciate your subscription. We try to produce great content for you every day, and don't miss out on those. Go and check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. You can send us a message through there if you have any questions about these topics of international structuring, reducing your taxes. You'd like help with the strategy. You'd like help with figuring out where to relocate, how to exit your crypto or do international, but basically everything to do with international structuring and living. You can book a call with me at calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, and I'm going to look forward to talking to you there. Let's jump in. Okay, so before I got into all of this, I probably had a similar mindset that is what I commonly see amongst clients or people who reach out to me. And that is kind of this focus on the tool, okay? So the approach is like, hey, which country should I go and form a company in? Hey, what about Swiss bank accounts? Very much focusing on the tool. And I think that's precisely the wrong way to look at it if you want to consistently get high quality results for a minimal amount of effort, okay? So I actually kind of reverse it, and instead the way that I try to think about it is I begin with the end in mind, right? Like, okay, let's not talk about where you should form a company or where you should open a bank account or something like this. Instead, let's start by talking, first of all, about just what do you want to achieve, right? Do you want to live in a particular country, right? Because I can tell you, hey, listen, I can give you 10 countries to go and live in if you want to pay no tax. But what if you want to live in Spain, right? So it's like, okay, well, what's the best we can do in Spain? How do we work through that, right? So what is it that you want to achieve in terms of your life, in terms of your business, in terms of your family, in terms of your lifestyle, etc., right? What is that goal? After we've figured that out, then we can say, okay, great, we have your circumstances, and so we have to navigate there. And to figure out the best way to get there, I think the best starting point is always to say, what are the rules? Like, we want to understand what are the mechanics that go into this. And it's quite shocking the number of people who don't ask from the beginning, kind of like, what are the rules? And I'll give you an example of this from years ago. I helped a client with getting some financing. So he had very brick and mortar type business, had a lot of equipment, etc. And due to the basically cycles of his business that were seasonal, there'd be a time when he had a lot of money out and he was very short on cash, and it made it difficult for him to expand. And then a few months later, he'd be cash rich, right? And so he wanted to go and borrow some money from the bank. And the bank, he went into the bank, they denied him. And so then I went and I redid it, and I was successful. And the question is, why was I successful? The difference was two things primarily. The first was I took the time to understand what the bank cared about. So banks have pretty rules-based lending criteria for the most part, right? If you can check these boxes, they're going to give out the loans because they want to give out loans. They're in the business of giving out loans, but they also want to protect themselves, right? So by taking the time to understand the rules, I was in a much stronger position. Now, in that particular case, I also once I had those rules, I was able to kind of think resourcefully and three-dimensionally around the problem in a way that really worked well. And that's what I typically try to do when we're doing international structuring. But when we're building international structures, it's the same kind of idea. I was training one of my employees here this past week, and we're going through a particular, quite a complex case. And so I was having them go kind of like say, okay, like, how would you do this, right? And again, the tendency is to go towards the tools, like, oh, hey, I would use this tool. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Before we think about what tools to use, let's understand the rules. And so we'll often do these really detailed, like 50-page analysis reports for clients that go through figuring out like what is the best solution for you. And the key when we're doing that is a huge amount of the effort gets expended on going through really carefully making sure we document and show what are the laws in this particular case? What are the factors that affect your situation? So we know we're going to work around those. Now, sometimes this is tax laws, sometimes this is banking rules, sometimes this is payment processing rules, sometimes this is regulations pertaining to a particular type of business, right? You can't do business in a certain country or whatever. But figuring those things out is really, really important. And so that's what I kind of want to encourage you to do, is when you're thinking about this, to instead of processing based on, hey, what's the tool, start by processing saying, what are the rules? What are the structures? What is the framework under which I'm operating? And that will help to inform what is the best tool. And what you'll find very often is that once you dig into that, you find that what you thought the tool was actually doesn't really matter that much. And the common example that I have is people are often asking, like, what about this jurisdiction? What's the best jurisdiction? It's like, well, oftentimes it's not about what the jurisdiction is, it's about what the substance is. And that's a completely different conversation that you could facilitate in many different ways. So anyway, that's an example. I hope that's kind of a helpful way of thinking for you. If you have questions about it, or if you would like help to go through that, it is certainly very complex. Feel free to reach out to me. Again, you can book a call. There's a link in the description below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you don't like it, please tell me why. We'd love your feedback, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.